Hello to all of my wonderful followers on Live Boldly Ministries podcast. I'm so happy today to welcome Rose Gamblin. Rose and her husband have interviewed me 3 times for 3 different books. And it's just been really exciting to kind of get to know her through the years at different conferences. She lives clear across the United States from Idaho, not near me. And I'm Nicki Corinne White, by the way. And so it's been fun to get to know her a little bit, but I've never interviewed her. And she has TV show podcasts. She's written several books. She's on faculty at Grand Canyon University in Maryland, and she is a teaching professional at Gettysburg Adventist School, and she's just got her fingers in a lot of pots, and I'm pleased by that because I have a lot of interest, and I kind of go bing, bing, bing to, a new idea, and my husband and my daughter, who's my executive assistant, go, oh no, not another new idea. But I'm thankful for you, Rose, that you have a lot of ideas also, and can relate to that kind of thing. Anyway, so today I'm just really glad to have you here. But I kind of, through all of our talks through the years, I have never really heard your journey of how you got involved with education and what drew you to what you're doing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and why you got so involved with education?
Well, I like to say that I'm actually a homeschool fossil. People will, talk about that they were, back in the day, but I really was. My parents were peers with John Holt, who is very famous for that Everything I Ever Learned, I Learned in Kindergarten book. And John Holt, along with Raymond Moore, went before Congress and got the permissions that parents could homeschool. That was federal. And then the states, have since then come on board so that homeschooling now is allowed in every state. But I was homeschooled, and I felt like my parents did the worst job homeschooling me because they were busy and they just gave me a big pile of books. I never had any quiz or any test. And then at the end of the 10th grade, I said, I really want to go to school. So they said, well, you get to have a bonus year, just do whatever you want, which then further compounded my belief that they were horrible homeschooling parents. But the message in it all to parents who feel like they're not good at homeschooling their kids is that God has put in each of us a desire to learn, know, and create.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that traditional education often stifles that. I think I learned the most of anything during the year. They said, oh, you can have a bonus year and just learn whatever you want to learn. Taught myself to play the piano and taught myself to sew and sewed all kinds of clothes for everybody. Went through cookbooks and cooked. And so that really set the stage for just loving to learn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm here today, because I love to learn. And I think every interview I do, like interviewing you, I was learning all about you. And that's interesting to me because God hasn't created one single human being like another human being.
Exactly. Right.
So when you're talking about your ADHD, I really think that people should embrace that. If you have that creative energy, and I'm so glad you have a team around you that can help you with your ideas, because I hit the same thing. My poor husband is sometimes frustrated because what idea have you thought of now that I have to implement?
Exactly. And I think Craig feels that way when I say, I'd kind of like to add this to the website, or maybe we could do this, or, and he's probably just rolling his eyes. He's been just wonderful and very patient with doing things. But you're right. you got all these ideas, but God gives you those ideas. And, you're a creative person like me. It's like you have those and they just pop in all the time. I mean, anyway. Well,
You know,
that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
before the show, we were talking about all the technical equipment and stuff, and then you went around, looked at others. I think the reason that we have so much stuff is not because we're technically suave or anything. It's because we are digital immigrants and
Mm,
we're still stuck. We
mhm,
started
mhm,
doing these interviews of people back in 2008. And so then we took suitcases of equipment to get a good audio recording.
mhm.
So it's
The
just the
first
times
interview
we
I
live
had
in.
with you was in a hotel room. You had
Yes,
set it up and you had long hair.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. You set it up. I think it was NRB, and it was in in a hotel room, and hard to get lighting when you're in a different place all the time, and careful. And the second one, you had trouble getting there, like you had,
yes. That was CPE, the not last time, but the time before. Now,
yeah,
NRB, here again, we couldn't get a real clear sound
yeah,
because if you're down in the floor, everyone's talking, moving
yes.
furniture, laughing around you. So we thought we'll do it in the room, which we did get excellent recordings. And since we were just radio, that was great. But I've done it twice that way, and I really miss not being in
Mm,
the hubbub. I'd rather put up with
yeah,
the
yeah,
noise. So Mike has gotten me these big headphones and
yeah.
everything. Then we have the stuff so that our guests, we can put their headphone in this little ultraviolet case and sanitize it between each one. And
For all those you listening who don't understand any of this stuff, it is really hard when you've got podcasts and TV shows and radio shows, and you're trying to make it all work. And there's scheduling difficulties and lighting and noise, and it is quite complicated. And I'm just in my workroom always, and it's fairly easy. We have lighting difficulties. It's not very bright, but if we open all the windows and it's glary, so you have a hard time. So I appreciate all of you, like just being patient with all of us who are just trying to get the word out there about different things.
yes, yes.
And Rose, I want to tell us a little bit now. I was trying to figure out from your website. So you have TV show, radio show, podcast, all those, or are they different, or are they inclusive to each other, or what are they?
So depending on which website you go to, because
I had a
I
hard
have
time. I had a hard time figuring out what from your
I have
website.
my MRG Media website,
Okay.
which that one we're really focused on ministry. And
Hmm.
so we have like 6 main ministries there, but one of them is our Homeschool Companion ministry. Then if you click on that, you go to the Homeschool Companion, and that has simply been audio. Since 2008, it's been audio, daily audio shows, and we only went to actual radio stations. So we were in brick and mortar radio stations. People might hear us when they're driving by. And then
Hmm.
I kept working because to keep this ministry going, I never relied on donations, even though I have the ability for people to donate. I just don't rely on it. And so I kept teaching, and I was usually teaching in micro schools, which there is a whole movement for that too, along with homeschooling, because every time there's a school shooting or any kind of
Uh-huh.
bullying experience, then parents are looking for alternative for their kids. And that being said, I felt guilty because I'd gotten a PhD. So in 2014, I started working for Grand Canyon University on the side. And the job is really perfect because it puts me into schools on a regular basis. So I have my finger, they're seeing
Hmm.
what the latest things are
Hmm.
happening, and also some of the challenges. And so I started in 2014 working for Grand Canyon, and I still am doing it. My title is faculty supervisor, so I'm not the cooperating teacher. I'm not on the site every day. I go and make sure maybe 4 times a semester that everything's going good. And but you know where my heart really is I love telling stories. And so I'm in a big writing thing right now to get all the stories that I always have been telling my students and my grandkids, get that down on paper. And you know, I really admire you, because the story in your head is easy, but to get it down on paper is hard. Or the book in your head, it's just there, so wonderfully composed, but then to get it down on paper.
You know, when I wrote my first book, Not Really a Princess, about my story, and I didn't ever consider myself a writer, it's interesting how, and I was in my 50s, that schooling from high school or whatever about, just that basic essay format, topic, paragraph, conclusion, paragraph, 3 details in between. Each paragraph has a beginning set, the whole format thing. What I did with Princess was I just had a little notebook. I use these little notebooks for everything. And I just write in them. And I I just said, okay, so I've taught enough Bible studies. You usually have semester like 13 weeks, so it needs to be at least like 13 chapters. And I broke it down, and then I kind of outlined all 13 chapters, wrote the title, kind of had, so I spread the story out and planned it. And I think people going into, for all those who thinking about writing a book, you don't just start at A and get to the end. You have to have your kind of what points you're going to hit along the way, or at least with me, I had to like almost analytically like kind of format it first and then fill in the stories along the way, because otherwise you've got all something bunched at the beginning and then not at the end. And so for me, I was kind of almost following a formula and filling my story in,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
you went back to what you had learned in school?
Like 30 years before or whatever. It somehow was just in my head. I mean, I
Yeah, and it
was,
was just waiting
yeah,
there to give birth to it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But people have asked that a lot. I don't know how to go about that. I have something in my head and I don't know how to go about that. And kudos to you for your books and you getting those ideas down and stories down, because that's so important to share
Yes.
it.
Well, there's been a long space. The other day, Mike collected all the stuff I had written. Some of that's published, some of it's not. And he goes, when are you going to get it out there? And I thought, it's true. Now I've got it written. And I wrote one book called Like a Little Child, The Spiritual Journey of Infants and Toddlers. And I
Mhm.
presented that as a keynote speaker at the National Association of Young Children. But that was in 2010. And so like it went into kind of a hibernation. And I think
Mhm.
people shouldn't feel bad about that.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like rivers disappear, but that doesn't mean the water isn't still flowing. And
Mhm.
then they reappear. And I think that's how our creative selves are.
Mhm.
We're thinking and doing and living life. I had parents die, sister
Mhm.
die, I
Mhm.
had grief to work
Life goes
with,
on. Right. Exactly.
and you
Mhm.
just can't. And some people who have the most wonderful stories really have to deal with this sorrow. It's a crucible of suffering, but out of
Mhm.
it's going to come their story.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. Mhm.
Just like your first book,
Mhm.
really. It had to
Mhm.
sit there for a while, and
Mhm.
then you could
Right.
talk about it objectively and move on. And doesn't that go with is it the second book about, bold living
Well,
life?
pie and even pie,
Oh, yes.
like testimonies of how people are helping someone who's going through
Yes.
adversity. And then that goes into bold. Which is
Yes.
like, well, then what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with
Yes.
what God's brought you through? Are you going to go out there and accomplish something because of He's showing you something? And so they do all tie together. And I think that's the way with all of our journeys, even from your teen years of what you were doing your
Yes.
junior year in high school, like it kind of forms who you are and what your plan is and what you need to be doing. And that's great. I wanted to also ask you, um, I one of the quotes or what I gathered from one of your informations is young children learn best when incorporating play, and older children like through like experiences and life examples and that sort of thing. I just love that. We all know, kindergartner. I substitute taught for years, and I knew right away, like, that I wasn't meant to be a kindergarten teacher. You have boys and girls that are coming from way different perspectives at 5, and then you have kids who've had some learning, kids who haven't had some learning, and they're all in one class. And then first grade, they learn to read and stuff a little more, and so that it just kind of grows from that. But and then I learned that I loved working with like junior high age and older
Yes.
kids. So I think we all kind of maybe lend ourselves to different age groups, but and I connect maybe more with the olders than the youngers.
Hmm.
But when they are different, and the play with the young kids and the life examples and learning experiences in the older kids, um, you know, it's like you're learning how to teach them, your kids, and at what stage they're at, what they're going through, and their
Yes.
personalities, what kind of person they are.
Yes. And the play thing is, it helps on so many levels, like the social, emotional, all of those levels. But even like my last full-time teaching, which was the year before last, I was in a high school, but it was a private high school. And so I had some latitude. With those high school kids, I still used playfulness, and I had a squawker. And
Ah,
so it was, something I'd picked up at the Dollar General store. It looked like a chicken, but it had a really nice squawking sound. And I would take that out and I go, okay, we're going to review our homework. If you've got the answer correct, squawker's going to squawk, and
mhm.
even my 11th graders loved to do it. And I had all boys in algebra 2 in the 11th grade.
Whoa.
And they just, pretty soon they're going, can we squawk the squawker? So, they could take turns squawking the squawkers. If they got these very sophisticated algebra problems correct, they could squawk the squawker. And at some point, with all the classes, that squawker's little sound stopped.
Hmm.
And I go, I can
Mm.
feel that the sound has gone down inside of this
Mhm.
chicken thing.
Mhm.
They go, can we fix it? Can we fix it? I said, well, I'll go get an X-Acto knife, and I have some super glue here. And then a couple of you can see if you can cut off the head,
Ah.
replace the the squawker, and glue it
Huh.
back on. And they did. I mean, now
Wow.
I still have that squawker today. It's a little treasured thing I have. But if you look at it, the head is a little bit skewed, but it is on there. I mean, it is on there so tight, I can't get the head off,
I
and
don't
it
know that I know what a
squawks
squawker is.
so loud.
Uh,
Oh, it squawks so loud.
wow. My
But little
daughter
things like that
is
is
subbing. I should
playful.
give her a squawker.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my nephew decided to
Huh.
sub, and he couldn't find a teaching job. And I said, okay, well, good luck. I hate subbing. And he went, and he came back the next day and he goes, Auntie Rose, you've got to give me some advice. I'm not going to survive. He goes, they're always having me sub in middle school. And so I said,
I
well,
love
this is
this.
what we're going to do. here is a bag of Jolly Ranchers, and here's a little tablet.
Mhm.
And if they misbehave, you just write their name down. You don't need to get upset or anything. And then every time they misbehave after that, just put a check by it. But if they don't get any names or any checks, then give them one Jolly Rancher at the end of the class. And, he became the favorite sub. In fact, they used to call him Mr. Jolly instead of, Mr. Cooley, because he always walked around with this big bag of Jolly Ranchers.
I just, I don't know. Sometimes, you have your sub note from the teacher and they might put down names of kids that might be naughty. I instantly scratch it out and I don't even look at who they are.
Yeah.
Truthfully, within the first 5 minutes, I know who they are.
Yes.
And what I try to do is connect with that kid, look them in the eye, kind of connect with them on some level. And I didn't really have problems with the problem kids.
Yes.
And I ended up loving to long-term sub because I could build more relationship with them
Yes.
and stuff. And I actually really enjoyed it. Maybe that's why I didn't connect as much with the littles, because I was trying to build this thing with the olders. And
You have, you can joke around with them and it's not the end of the world. But with a little kid,
it's confusing.
they can interpret. They're
Mm,
not yet, their minds aren't developed to be
mm,
able to interpret what
yeah.
it's all about.
Yes.
I just have to ask you, Nicki, what's on your agenda? Are you
I was
writing
just gonna
another book?
I was actually just asking you that, but
Oh, well, yeah,
um
this is the problem with two people that interview people.
yeah, I do have a new book. And I don't know if in August I told you about it, but it's called The Path After Grace. And it's all about the sanctification process. Become a believer, you're not instantly perfect, and you grow and you go through hard times, and um God kind of chips away at you and you kind of go, and then something happens and you work through that and you kind of learn something new. And so the whole thing is kind of a journey, kind of
That's a
about.
great, I mean, I absolutely love that metaphor because, the children of Israel and their wanderings in the wilderness, that
Mhm,
actually did happen, but there's a lot
mhm,
of personal lessons for each of us in
right,
that journey.
right. And so they'll be kind of like bold, uses scripture with people's testimonies. There'll be some of that. All my books have had some testimonies of some people with scripture and how scripture ties in with that, and that will all happen. I was hoping to kind of maybe get it ready to edit by like May or something, but I've been so swamped. I haven't been working on it lately like I thought. So I don't know when it will happen. I'd like to have it come out next fall, but I don't know that will happen. How about you?
Well,
What's
I
your
have,
newest
yeah,
venture?
I have a number of things. I'm revising the Like a Little Child because I
Mm,
wanted to add the chapter. That was in 2010, and now research is just coming out about the effect of technology on the infant's
uh-huh.
brain. And so I'm
Yeah.
really working on that. I want to get that done in time to start presenting it at different homeschool conventions. But
That's really key right now. And people are concerned about technology with their kids, and
yes,
it is so forefront in parents' minds. And just even seeing how one of my grandsons instantly, when he was like 8 months old, knew that a TV remote pushed buttons and something happened. And
yes,
so they just gave him a pretend one, but it's like he knew that. He was like 8 months old. And I don't know. It's just different than when we were kids, like, and maybe that's why I don't know anything about tech. But the kids are up against a lot, and parents, I'm so glad I'm not parenting now, actually,
yes,
because I wouldn't know what to do with it, because I'm kind of like a be outside person and
yes,
work with your hands and do things and go outside. And so I think it would be really hard for me if I was struggling with children
yes,
were addicted to a technology or anything, you know.
yes. Well, in my research, I've found that there's very limited, but a mother who sits with a cell phone near her baby in vitro is actually changing the brain of that baby by
Ah.
the radio frequency magnetic radiation.
Mm.
See, we were at first worried about gamma rays, but it's really the radio frequency. And we are still concerned about the blue light of the screens, but
Mhm.
the radio frequency, and there needs to be a lot more
Mhm.
research, but how do you do that, So that has been
Mhm.
pretty eye-opening for me, because it changes the brain and it's causing babies not to have the executive functioning that.
Mhm.
So we wonder why
I
kids are so out of control.
Oh,
And
I mean, and if I'm in a hotel room and there's blue light, so the red, they say that the red or the orange or whatever doesn't do that to you, but the blue or the green does. And you're in a hotel room and you can't even I usually use a towel from the bathroom and throw it over the top of things. But like they'll be on the wall, like
yeah,
just the heater thing has a blue light on it and you can't even throw something over it. You've got like something on the you've got like 4 lights you're
yeah.
trying to cover. I guess I could take like masking tape with me and cover them up or something, but I have read that that is bad for you, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough to know what to do. So Rose, as we wrap this up, and I want you to not just give us contact information, but how does somebody watch your podcast or your radio, listen to your radio show, and why don't you give us all your information, and then my husband will take and document that for us and for
Okay.
our website. So give us all your
Well,
info.
our main website is homeschoolcompanion.org, all spelled out, and that has links to everything else. We also launched a virtual high school to help homeschool through high school. So that's virtual-highschool.com or .org. And then we're all protected under the umbrella of MRG Media. And so that's spelled out mrgmediaministries.com. And all of those websites
Okay,
go back and forth and link to each other. And
that's
then you
good.
can always call us on our corporate number, 301-824-3162, because we'd love to interview. We love to interview for our radio show. And we're just now
Mm,
beginning to, we're beginning to put it on our YouTube channel, which again
mm.
is Homeschool Companion YouTube channel, whatever. I don't I don't know how to say it.
I know, I have a YouTube thing too. I understand that. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a lot going on for you guys, and a lot to focus on getting done and accomplished. And it's been wonderful to get to know you the last few years, and I'm glad that you're able to be on the podcast today. And it's
Thank
just
you so
lovely. Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And
And thank you,
we
Rose. And
appreciate you so much. You've given us some giveaways, some of your books to give away. People are so happy to get them. And I look forward to seeing you maybe at NRB or the
I
next.
am hoping to be an NRB, and I might be in a different role. Like I might be doing what you're doing and recording some of my podcasts. So
Okay. And
I
let's,
am planning on going to Dallas this year
I
for
really
NRB.
want to get the visual podcast that we didn't get.
Yeah.
I mean, that I've lost unless I find it. But anyway, I really want to get it.
Wow. That's so sad. I'm so sad that happened to you. But yes, so I'll probably see you in February. And
Yes.
anyway, exciting to talk to you, and thank you so much, Rose, for being on our
Thank
show.
you. Thank you.